Rebirth of the Dam by Borzuk. Chapter 1 Awakening. He awoke. Immediately he realized something was amiss. In fact, the entire situation before him was all wrong. For one thing, he was alive. That much was impossible. Clearly remember dying. As well a few things that happened afterwards. Did someone bring me back? He wondered. But he quickly brushed off that idea. There was anyone left that would want him back. Not even her, he lamented, and the very thought hurt him more than the pain of death. The second thing that was wrong was noticed by him. When he first opened his eyes, he was surrounded by a dark, shaded forest. And by dark, he meant really dark. Not only by the lack of sunlight, but also the seeming wrongness of the place, as if this forest and whatever might be in it didn't belong here. It made his blood run cold, and that was saying something. As the impact of that internal assessment hit him, he noticed something else was very wrong. He put his hand upon his chest. The bump, the bump, the bump. I have a heart? That was even more absurd than the fact he was even alive, not only because he personally cut out his own beating heart, but the fact that it was physically destroyed before his own eyes, mere months before his defeat and death. He shivered as he remembered the sheer pain he felt that day. He looked down towards his chest. There were two huge scars. One stretched across his rib cage as a painful reminder of a wound that was so deep it had actually glazed his then living heart. That near-death blow had prompted him to physically cut it out himself in the first place. The second one was from the weapon strike that had ended him, delivered by the rune blade created as a sister blade, and direct counter to his Frostmourne, Shadowmoor, and the former was shattered. Why am I alive? He wondered again, staring at his scars. After a moment, he noticed that, well, there weren't scars. A coat of fur, a white-colored fur coat. Did somebody turn me into one of those mongrels when I wasn't looking? He thought angrily, as he started to panic, only to notice that whatever happened to him was far more disturbing, insane, odd, and possibly idiotic than anything he knew of. The realization hit him hard, as he soon shifted his gaze. Originally, one of his hands. What, by all that is holy, is this a hoof instead of my hand? He uttered to no one in particular, speaking for the first time since he had first woken up. He stared at it in disbelief for what felt like hours to him, until he finally broke his stupor and tried to get up, only to struggle without result. Bending his head, he gave himself a good look at his body, and he suspected someone had turned him into a horse, a small, white horse. Is this some bizarre version of hell? He muttered to himself, while attempting to stand up again, and succeeding the second time. If it's some sort of hell, then I don't understand it. I mean, it's unusual, but I always liked horses. Memories of his late beloved steed washed over him, but he promptly shook them off. Now was not a time to lament what he had done to him. It doesn't feel like much of a puzzlement. Wait a second. Am I talking? "How the bloody hell can I be a horse and still talk?" he exclaimed, using one of his old mentor's favorite verbal curses, as he tried to figure out how he would walk on four legs, which was surprisingly difficult. He noticed a small pond nearby. Deciding that he would take a good look at himself, he carefully and awkwardly walked towards it. The face that returned his gaze from the surface of the pond, both odd and disturbingly familiar, had the obvious horse features, but they seemed to be toned down to humanoid facial standards. If the dumbfounded expression it wore was any inclination, however, what struck him the hardest was the color of his hair. Mane? He mentally corrected himself, as well as his tail, which he hadn't noticed earlier. They were both the same golden color that his hair used to have. Indeed, used to have, before all the unspeakable things I did back then. He peered sadly into his sea-colored eyes, which he noted were ridiculously large, as they were reflected in the small pond, and pondered out loud, "What am I? Who am I?" Three loud shrieks pierced his thoughts from somewhere nearby, as though to answer his pondering questions. Instantly he stood up. Some people were in trouble, and that was the only thing that was clear to him, so far. He could sort out his identity problems later. And with that set in his mind, he started to run towards the direction of the screams, only to fall on his face. Frustrated, he stood up once again, but this time he focused himself. He closed his eyes, tried to recall how his dear steed had moved, how he ran, and how he jumped. "Bah! There's no time for this!" he suddenly scolded himself, having thought through this. He started running once more, or galloping rather, with far more success this time. Feeling a small amount of relief after this small personal victory, he tried to focus toward the direction of the screams. They were heard once more. He quickened his pace in response. If it weren't for the fact this entire situation didn't make any sense to him to begin with, he would have believed that he was seeing things. In front of him was a clearing in the forest, where three little horses were screaming for help. They were surrounded by wild creatures which happened to be something of a lumberjack's twisted nightmare, a pack of wolves that appeared as though they were made out of wood. This image before him was so unbelievable he nearly stopped, but he somehow managed to get a hold of his uncontrolled chain of thoughts, and quickly charged towards the unusual wolves. When he slammed his body against the closest wolf, he noticed that they didn't just look as if they were made out of wood, they felt like they were made out of wood. Nonetheless, he struck the wolf with enough force to hurl its body right into the wolf next to it. With two of the pack out of the way, at least for the moment, he stood protectedly in front of the little ones and called out towards them, "Stay close to me," after which he returned his attention to the wolves. There were 5 of them, including the 2 that were already getting back up off the ground. They appeared to have been staggered by his sudden attack, but they were quickly recovering their original intent. Already they began to encircle around their prey, attempting to surround them again. Not that he planned to ever give them a chance to do that. He quickly leaped to the next wolf, whirled around, and kicked it forcefully with his hind legs. Judging from the painful sounding whimper that the wood-like creature produced, apparently quite effective. Even with its hard out of skin. Wasting no time to glance at it, he dashed back next to the little ones, and headbutted the wolf that was attempting to bite them, perhaps thinking that it had time for such a bold move. The creature was proven painfully wrong. He quickly turned around in time to see another wolf leaping towards him, with teeth bared. This time he stepped to one side, dodging it, then back hoofing it at the back then back hoofing it at the back of its skull. He made a mental note to himself that was probably a good thing. That it was probably a good thing he had hooves right now. Had he tried something like that against a creature just did like this, just with bare hands, he was fairly certain he would have broken a few bones in it, and the wolf would have probably just barely felt it, for now it awkwardly stumbled away, seemingly dazed and dizzy from the harsh impact strike against its head. He looked towards the wolves. There were two left that hadn't attacked him yet. Among them was the wolf he had charged into at the beginning, or at least he thought so. He couldn't really tell either way. Besides them, the only wolf still present was the one he ran with his head. He stomped one hoof forward harshly. If it had just been him, if it had just been him, then he would then if it just had been if it just had been him if it just had been him, then he had little doubt he could defeat them. Even with this willed body he found himself in. But with the little ones close behind him, he preferred not to take chances. Get lost! He shouted harshly and angrily at them, trying to imitate them. This display appeared to work at first. The two wolves that he had already hit started to back away with evident fear. They were close. They were they were clearly not terribly keen on being injured by a capable combatant again. However, the largest wolf, which had kept itself towards the back of the pack when they attacked, now stepped forward. He frowned with annoyance, guessing by how larger this one was, along with the fact that it had waited that it had, along with the fact that it had waited for the rest of the pack to create an opening for an easier killing blow towards the stronger invisible him must have meant this was the alpha member of this pack. This did not bode so well for him. For one, it probably wouldn't be so quick to show weakness toward its pack by surrendering to its apparent prey. Also, so it wouldn't be simple to intimidate. And two, noting the scars that stretch across its muzzle and body, it was probable that this wolf was a veteran among its kind, and familiar with situations where the prey fought back. The The one good thing amidst it all was that it appeared to have focused solely on him for obvious reasons, so the little ones were probably out of harm's way for the moment. Uttering a silent prayer for the safety of the little ones, not for himself, for he very well knew that he deserved a fate far worse than death. Even now, he focused his gaze upon the alpha wolf, it pacing slowly while attempting to approach from his left side. Without further warning, the alpha suddenly pounced on him. Having anticipated that much, he quickly pressed his body closer to the ground, intending to hopefully cause the alpha to overshoot its target while preparing to strike his skull with his hind leg as it flew over in midair. But he didn't get the chance to do the last that. But he didn't get a chance to do that last part. Instantly, the alpha wolf grasped at his neck with all four paws, hold, halting its flight. Even without missing a beat, the alpha instantly landed on the ground, then im- then im- then immediately followed it up by harshly kicking the pony headfirst into one of the many trees with its hind paw. Kicking the pony headfirst into the many trees with its hind paws. Since when wolves can do something like that, he briefly wondered, in shock and astonishment before impacting against the tree. Attempting to stand, the force of the impact had left him dazed. He clearly collapsed to the ground. He nearly collapsed towards the ground when he heard three voices of the little ones call out simultaneously, "Look out!" He managed to react just barely in time to throw his front hooves between the open jaws of the alpha wolf. Seeing sharp teeth so close to his throat, and once again being thankful for the hard hooves he currently had instead of soft hands, he curled his hind legs and, desperately hoping that the creature on top of him was a male, kicked into it with all his might, aiming at the one spot he was pretty certain wouldn't have as much durable skin. The contrasting screams of pain that the wolf produced was loud enough to startle everything in the forest. Taking advantage of the overwhelming pain the wolf was immobilized by, he quickly dashed away and grabbed a tree branch that had likely broken off from his previous impact with his teeth. He then swung it with as much speed and force that one could muster after fighting in many battles, and the strike made contact with the alpha wolf's forehead just as the alpha wolf finished recovering itself and attempted to turn its head towards him. He finished by using the momentum to whirl himself around again and kick him hard again in the head. The force of the impact hurled the alpha wolf some distance away from its quarry. He glanced around to be sure that the young ones were safe, and sure that the wolves hadn't gotten any bold ideas while he was dealing with their apparent leader. The kids were staring at him with wide eyes, but otherwise appeared to be unharmed. The remaining wolves, on the other hand, or other hoof, he mused, were visibly terrified and were fearfully backing away. He turned his attention back to the alpha wolf, which was attempting to stand up while trembling. He then noticed that a few of its teeth had been shattered on. He then noticed that a few. He then noticed that a few. He noticed. Then he. He then noticed that a few. He then noticed. He then noticed. Oh crap! I lost my place now. He then noticed a few. He then noticed that a few of its teeth had been scattered on the grass. Just like before, he harshly stomped his hoof on the ground and shouted, attempting to be as loud and forceful as possible. I will not say this again. Get lost. This time the message got through. This time the message got through. The alpha wolf, having recovered its feet, the alpha wolf, having recovered to its feet, quickly turned away and hastily scurried off, with its tail between its legs. The rest of its pack quickly followed that example. That was awesome! Erupted three voices behind him, which was followed by two similar cheers. He smiled briefly. How long has it been since he heard someone proclaim such things about him? He turned around and mused that he wasn't even surprised at this point that they could talk. I guess nothing can surprise me now. He would regret making that thought the moment it concluded in his mind. Now he was able to get a good look at the three fillies, not knowing the hell he would know, not knowing how the hell he could know that, no, not, not knowing the hell he could have known that they were girl horses. He noticed that the orange one with purple mane had wings, and the gray one with pink purple mane had a horn. The only normal one out of the three was the light yellow one with a red mane and a pink bow. This is going to be a long day, he mused wearily, feeling quite dizzy. I'm glad you think so, he said aloud to the three fillies. Are any of you hurt? No, mister, and it's thanks to ya, says the yellow one. You're like the greatest hero ever, added the gray one with the horn. Hey! Snapped the orange one with wings. The greatest hero ever is Rainbow Dash. Remember? Well, sure, Rainbow Dash is awesome, but look at his scars. Don't they make him just like a hero? Okay, fine, but Rainbow Dash, putting aside the heroism of this Rainbow Dash, he started interjecting before they had a chance to start arguing, while at the same time wondering What kind of name is Rainbow Dash anyways? Do the three of you know? Do the three of you mind explaining to me just what you all, just what you, just what all, what, just what are you all, just what are you all doing in a place like this? He finished with a, he finished with a, he finished with, he finished with, he finished with a stunned expression on his face. The three fillies looked at each other with a guilty look in their eyes. We were going to visit Sakura to see to see if to see if she could teach us her, her to see if she could teach us her native language, and then we kind of got lost. Why, I'm not surprised by the last one. Ah, well, he said, dropping the stunned expression. I suppose I'll leave the scolding to your families, and I can't really hold against you. I can't really hold it against you. The fact you're lost, since I am since I am as well. Really? How did you get lost, mister? Long story. Maybe I'll tell you about it some other time. But for now, we should get out of this forest. Let's try it that way, he said, pointing with one hoof. How do you know that point feels that way? Said the how do you know how do you know point feel that way? Asked the filly with wings. He was about to snort a laugh at that name until he remembered that his own hometown's name wasn't really any more original either. Instead, he chuckled in his thoughts. So we're ponies then? Damn. I like it better when I was I like it better when I was horse. I like it better when I was a horse. I don't, he answered truthfully. But the wolves were in the opposite direction. It seemed to sound like a good enough reason for the fillies, since all at once they started walking in the direction he had suggested. Then he was certain that they wasn't watching him. He pressed a hoof to the back of his head, then stared at it. There was fresh blood on it. Damn, no wonder I'm feeling so dizzy, he thought to himself, and briefly wondering if he could do something about it, only to notice that there wasn't anything he could use as a bandage. I could have healed a wound like this in the blink of an eye at one point, he thought then, and also realized, hell, back then I wouldn't have been injured that easily. He shook the thoughts from his head. He shook the thoughts from his mind, and continued to walk with the fillies at his sides. Right now, his top priority was to get them out of this forest. After that, he could bleed. After that, he could bleed out until he died again. For all he, for all that he cared. Although he would have probably passed out first due to the due to due to concussion, due to the con, 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 due to the con, con, due to the concussion, due to the dang it, due to the concussion. Why did you want this Cora to teach you her language? He asked, out of curiosity after a few minutes, trying to distract himself and them from this whole situation. Seems uncanny for kids your age to try and learn a second language. Well, we thought that maybe our special talent would turn out to be language learning or something, explained one with a horn as as her as her head was hanging down. Yeah, we could get a language a yeah, we could get a language learning cutie mark come proclaimed the one pony with a pink bow on her head, as she agreed with her friend that had a horn. What's a cutie mark? He already knew that he already knew that he said he already knew that he says he already knew that he said he already knew that he had said something weird at the moment he finished that sentence. All three fillies had turned their heads toward him simultaneously and were looking at him with wide eyes and gasping jaws, in a sheer expression of disbelief. Sir, were you joking? No. Why? How can any boy not know what cutie mark is? Oh, the three fillies all shouted painfully in loud unison, painfully loud unison. Fuss, not so loud, he said, but fuss, not so loud, he said, massaging his aching head. The shouting wasn't helping that either. And second, look, girls, he has a blank flank, explained the one with wings that crept closer to him. Does he mean that I'm naked? He briefly wondered, just realizing that only now. What? How can a pony this what? How can a pony this old and not have a cutie mark? Oh my stars! Does this mean we could be blank thanks forever? Hey, is that is that a road? He stated, briefly regretting that he was trying to distract them, only for suddenly notice that he was actually pointing at a road of sorts. Huh, will you look at that? You're right, mister. That's the main path of the forest. Oh, I can see the entrance from here. We're saved. Good, he said wearily, feeling even dizzier from all their shouting earlier. Do you three think you could? Apple bloom! Some voice ahead some voice from ahead exclaimed, both relieved, overjoyed, and upset. Uh-oh, said the one with the bow quietly whimpered. Seems like someone is in a bit of trouble, he guessed, amused, while the filly was probably uncomfortable that somebody had found them. He, for one, was relieved. For some time now he was keeping himself conscious and standing with only with sheer willpower. Now he could finally let go and collapse. The darkness enclosed around him once more.